I'd mentioned to the team before, I'm here in New York, and I am visiting my family here for Easter. I know today is Good Friday for those of you who are Christians and celebrate these holidays. Well, today is obviously a day of solemnity, but Sunday will be the resurrection of Jesus. And anyway, so I'm up here for vacation, Clay, and I'm always curious. I'm thinking, I'm back and forth between New York and Florida a fair amount, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, what's it really like in the city these days? And this morning I hopped on the subway, as I used to do at one point 4 times a day was how often I was on the subway in 2019. I was going up and back and then up and back again for 2 different shows that I had to do in New York City. And so I'm on the subway platform. I'm walking up, and I get to the top of the stairs, not on the street level, but in the sort of interior where you can cross over if you want to go uptown or downtown on the New York City subway. And I see a guy who is standing there, and I don't know how to say this other than to say this on the radio, but he was,
treating his body like an amusement park.
Yes, he was staring at women walking up the steps and masturbating. Was what was going on at 9 o'clock in the morning, in Columbus Circle. This is what I saw. Guys, now he's sort of covered himself a little bit with a jacket, but you could see what the guy is doing. Okay, I don't know what you could see what this guy is doing. And I had this moment in my head. I go, well, what am I supposed to do? I look around, right? He didn't assault anyone. He didn't touch anyone. Okay, so it's not an imminent threat to anyone's physical safety. It's just this guy's doing this thing. And some of the team here told me they've seen this before. I have never, in all my decades.
At 9 a.m., for people who don't know New York City well, at 9 a.m., and this is theoretically a nice area of New York City, right?
It's Columbus Circle. I mean, it's where the Columbus statue is. It's very,
right by Central Park, right by the big Time Warner building.
And I'll be honest with you, I've seen
a pretty nice area of New York.
I've seen a lot in New York in my years here, and I was a young guy here. I used to go out till, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and, I've done all that stuff. So I've seen some stuff. This was so shocking to me that, and I actually I was like that. I had a moment of disbelief. I'm like, there's no way this guy's actually just doing that right there like that, I've seen, go into the bathroom in public. Everybody's doing that here who's, not everybody, but you know what I mean? Like every crazy person you see who's a vagrant is, going on the streets because it's not illegal anymore in New York. It used to be you could get arrested, get a summons for it, but now you do whatever you want. Anyway, I know this is gross, folks, and I'm sorry, but I'm walking up and I'm thinking to myself, all right, let's play this out of my head for a second. I look around, no cops anywhere. No cops anywhere. Because I would have, flagged an officer down. And I go, all right. So now I'm supposed to go find an officer, I guess. And I'm supposed to say, sir, this is what I saw. I'm supposed to maybe walk the officer. I by the way, I don't know where this cop's going to be. I'm not going to call 911 over this. Other people, by the way, there are masses of people walking by this guy. Like no one is even.
I would have just kept going. I mean, I would have kept going, but I think it speaks to the lack of safety and decorum that exists in the public transportation now, that this could even occur, and that most people are just going to roll their eyes and keep going. And it's such a ridiculous, and that's kind of a pun almost, such a ridiculous situation to find yourself in.
And I know people, I understand, people that don't deal with, this has been a long time, in the making. But, if you live in like a pretty nice suburban area of the country, if you're from like a suburb of Houston, or if you're from, you're not seeing the kind of stuff we're seeing in New York City. Okay. So I'll just put that out there. You're not.
But you are if you're in downtown San Francisco or you're in LA.
But this is what I mean.
Or you are in any of these big cities.
It's hard for people that live in places with more order to understand the level of disorder in some of these, urban Democrat strongholds. Now, San Fran, Seattle, L.A., by the stuff that I've seen on recent trips to Los Angeles going on, I'm like, really? Santa Monica, Venice Beach, the stuff that's going on the streets there. Anyway, but I just walked through this. Keep in mind, Alvin Bragg just indicted Trump. We see what a total clown show the justice system has turned into here in New York City. Let's say I say something to this guy. let's say I say, how dare you, sir? And let's say, and now we really got to think this through, he puts hands on me, which this is not a good place for me to be. It's not a good place for me to be, folks. You're thinking this one through. So he grabs me with those.
It's like two naked guys fighting in a locker room. You may not like the naked guys fighting, but you're probably just going to let them have at it.
But he puts hands on me, which is really, and we get into a scuffle. Maybe then police arrive or something, whatever. And I say, hey, this is what this guy was doing. What he's going to say he wasn't. He's going to say, that I started something with him. He was just fixing his belt, or he was going to come up with some, explanation for what was going on that, had nothing to do with anything. And now it's right-wing radio host accuses. I'm sure they'll go back and they'll find that, the guy got some award in the third grade, like honor scholar of doing, unspeakable things. And, it's just, you can't trust the system here at all, is my point. I have no faith, even if they find out this guy's got, is wanted for different sex crimes and has, got all kinds of stuff in his past. I can't trust that they're going to take my word for what was going on here and they go up to this guy. I mean, so Clay, how does this get better in places like this? This is my ultimate point. How is it going to improve? I've been here for 24 hours. My first step on this, literally first steps on the subway. This is what I see.
Well, first of all, the answer is this person has to fear punishment in order to behave. I mean, that's the number one rule that I think we've lost. No one really fears the punishment for their wrongfulness. And I think about it, at least you're a grown man. Imagine how many people, Buck, might have experienced that as it's Easter weekend. Let's say you brought your family into New York because you want to be there for the holiday, and one of the first things you see is a guy treating his body like an amusement park, and you've got an 8-year-old with you or a 12-year-old, and you're trying to walk up the stairs right at Central Park because you want to take the kids and go through Central Park. This is how things fall apart. It's not necessarily just the extreme violence, although we know certainly that is skyrocketing too. But it is all of these small, relatively inconsequential things that add up to destroy the overall environment that many people are living in.
This is what I was just talking to my family about, because I went over and saw them right before I came in to do the show today, Clay. And I was just saying, we focus so much on the statistics that they can't hide, like murder or carjackings, where people are going to report it, and it's terrible, and it's dangerous, and bad things have happened, understandably. But if you're in a healthy, law and order-based society, you don't have to assume that every time you go into a public place like the subway system in New York or like downtown in San Francisco, or, you go to think of all these different areas, you're going to be screamed at with profanity and threatened by maniacs. Because that doesn't get really reported, right? That's not necessarily, and by the way, if you do report it, what's going to happen to those individuals? Nothing. But you would think that you could go on the subway and not see some guy engaging in, autoerotica in broad daylight in front of all the tourists, and that would be something that you could have it as an expectation. But even if I went and ran and flagged down a police, by the way, am I going to have to go to court and testify against this guy now? How involved in this do I really want to get? I don't live,
Yeah, that's why I said I would have just walked by. I wouldn't have done anything.
You draw the line. If you think you can help, and by the way, sometimes people have intervened to help people being attacked in the subway, and guess what happens? They get attacked, and it gets really ugly.
No doubt.
So you're taking a risk there. And I don't even believe that the justice system here, depending on the politics of who is involved in the assault, the altercation, etc., I don't think you could trust them to be reasonable. Look at what Bragg just did to the guy who got shot. By the way, I believe he's an immigrant from I forget where, but the guy's an immigrant to this country. He's not a white guy, and he shot the guy who shot him, and Bragg chained him to his hospital bed, recovering from his wounds, and charged him with attempted murder for 2 days.
Yeah, and he did it to the bodega owner.
So this is why anyone who knows anything about big city politics knows it's like, oh, Buck, like you saw this, like you should have gotten in.
That's why most people just walk by. I guarantee you, because they said I just don't want to get involved.
I don't trust the authorities here. Full stop. I don't trust them. It's not that I don't. By the way, it's not that I don't trust the NYPD. I trust the NYPD guys and gals to, if I said, hey, this is going on, I think they would try to do something. That guy, if arrested, would be back out on the streets in 2 hours.
Yep.
And you know what he'd be doing? The same thing. And you know what they do when they arrested him for time number 15 or number 50? Maybe they'd send him to Bellevue for an evaluation or something. He'd be out on the streets again. And I look at the cops and I'm like, how can I blame it? It is the prosecutors. It is the mayor. It is Alvin Bragg. It is Eric Adams. Eric Adams is a disaster. He has been just unbelievably incompetent trying to fix this city. And I look around, look what happened in Chicago. I look at these Democrats voting for more Democrats. You guys are wrong. It's not going to work. You need someone to come in and clean up the mess who's serious about it. You're not going to improve these cities otherwise. And, I mean, we're losing some of the greatest American cities, and I would argue some of the greatest cities in the world, to idiotic policies that cowards who have their own shows on MSNBC. Oh, yeah, Morning Joe, please. When was the last time that guy drove a car himself to get into work every day? Oh, I'm really, Mika, I'll take care. First of all, he lives in Florida, too. But, the whole thing, Clay, it's, they should put me in charge, man, honestly. I'd clean up the streets fast, I'll tell you that one. They wouldn't.
I think it's going to just have to get so bad that a Giuliani-like figure rises up in many of these different hellhole Democrat cities. We certainly haven't gotten there yet in Chicago based on what happened in the mayor's race, but I think that's ultimately what's going to have to happen.
People haven't suffered enough. Bottom line,
that's right.
Democrats haven't suffered enough in the cities that they have destroyed. So maybe one day.